Doing an acid box special today. I'm kind of looking forward to it. Actually, I've been meaning to do a video like this on my YouTube, but I never really had a nice way of presenting it. But it's never really come off, and I think it'd be better to do it on a stream. So that is the plan. So this is an original TB-303. This here is a Behringer clone, but it's not a clone of the original 303. It's a clone of a modified 303, which is quite famous, called Devilfish. Modifications to the TD3. They do make it sound different. In fact, it's actually not possible to match the sounds. The TD3MO has more bass to it, and the resonance is a bit different. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just a different flavor. If you're buying the TD3MO, yeah, it has more features, but it doesn't sound like an original 303 because what this is cloning is already something that's modified. Let's start by playing the same riff on both, and then I'll go into the extra features of the TD3MO. The signal chain is it's going through this Boss BX800 mixer, which has the gain dimed, so it's overdriving, and in the effects loop we've got a Boss digital reverb, and that's going straight into my laptop. Here is the sound of the MO. So, original and the MO. That's about as close as I could get them. I think it's pretty clear that the MO has more bass. Yeah, you can hear that very clearly. So one of the failings of the original TB-303 is when you bring the resonance up, it cuts out a load of low end. Let me show you. So there it has bass, and then you turn up the resonance, and the low end gets removed. Now, on a Devilfish and on this Devilfish clone, there's still bass there, you can still hear it's got more low end and we've got the resonance fairly high. So I think that was a deliberate design choice by the guy who did the Devilfish, was to add more low end. So for that reason, you can't really get the TD3MO to match a TB303. It's just not possible. I've done the best I could, though. Original TB303. And the TD3MO, as close as I can get it. The accent does hit harder on the TD3MO. Yeah, and the accent sounds a bit different, and it definitely does hit harder. Now, the accent hitting harder is a real positive when you're trying to do distorted 303 lines. Dirty12 asks, can I connect the headphone out to the filter in? Yeah. So I'm going to go from the headphones into the filter in. Let's see what happens. Definitely adding more distortion. It's a bit like what the overdrive control is doing. It adds more bass as well doing that. This is a Moog Werkstatt. A lot of people think you need a Roland for acid, but I don't really think that's the case at all. Acid for me is a lot about the way you sequence. You can get most synths to do a good 303 if you sequence them properly. So I'm going to use the 303 to sequence the Werkstatt. At this point, you'd probably say this was a 303, right? If you closed your eyes. So much is in the sequencing. Let's add a bit of distortion. That's the Moog done, I think. This is a Roland MC-202, and we're going to try and sequence this with the 303 as well. I mean, that's sounding quite acid as well, isn't it? Even though it's not a 303. It's really so much in the sequencing. Let's add some distortion to that MC-202. I think that's cool. I think it does sound good, the MC-202. You can use pedals to get different characters out, any 303 clone. The classic pedals that you should try on a 303 are the Rat, the MXR Dist Plus, and the Boss OS2. And actually, Behringer make a clone of the Boss OS2 that sounds exactly like a Boss OS2. And it's like about €30 or something. This is a Lady Ada Zox box. There have been many attempts to clone the 303. Some of them have been better than others. This was the first one that I really thought sounded like I thought it should. I got it as a kit actually, and I made it myself. Let's compare the TB-303 against a Zox box. I think Lady Ada, she did a great job of her Zox box. I put a lot of love into constructing this Zox box. I spent ages like matching the transistors and all of that kind of thing. The resonance, it definitely sounded a bit different just then when I was testing it. I mean, these are really subtle differences. There's no way in a track you could tell the difference between a 303 and a Zox box. They're so close. And I would even say that probably two 303s are going to sound different from each other as well. It would be nice if it was a bit smaller. It's a bit of a beast, the Zox box. But it's good. I rate it. I think Lady Ada did a brilliant job. It sounds so close to a 303 that you really have trouble telling the difference, honestly. Never tried a Re 303 Dirty 1200. The Re 303 even has the same printed circuit board layout as TB-303, so it should be even closer than a Zox box. But this thing here is, the Zox box is so close anyway. This thing is one of my favorites actually. I've got a proper video explaining this on my YouTube channel. This thing doesn't feel limited. If you want like a little acid box that runs on batteries, it doesn't sound anything really like a 303. But it does have a really good acid sound. So I did program the same pattern into the 303 as the Nubass. I've never A-B'd them directly in this way. If you're a true connoisseur, you wouldn't mistake the Nubass for a 303. but that doesn't stop it from me giving it the highest recommendation I can. So this thing has a few devilfish-like features as well. It's got a sub-oscillator for getting a bit more grind. The filter is a lot more peaky than a 303. People often make the mistake, if you're using a 303, you know when you put the resonance on maximum, it's not actually that resonant. You've got to exercise a bit of discretion with the resonance control. Never turn it up to its fullest if it doesn't need it. It's not going to sound any better. It has an attack control like the Devilfish, but the Devilfish attack control is really subtle. This is like doing a proper attack. It has a built-in drive circuit, and it also has an LFO. Okay, you can hear it doing some LFOing there. What tube is in it? They are called nanotubes. I don't know really how much of this is adding to the sound. It's like a vacuum fluorescent tube, says W. Moog. It may well be. Let's try the accent a bit. Like having the devilfish thing, I'd like to be able to change the decay on the accented notes differently to get that kind of devilfish thing happening. Using VFD in an amp circuit creates some perverted signal artifacts that play nice with the filter. Yeah, it sounds, there's no doubt it sounds good. Also, what I like about this thing is the sequencer's brilliant too. Again, I covered this quite a bit on my YouTube channel, but it's really quite fun, like programming an acid line here, because the way the options they've given you for the sequencer, whoever designed this knows how to program an acid line, and they've given you the exact amount of control that you need. This is a Roland TB-3. This does a lot more than 303 can actually do. The first bank is classic 303 sounds, and then you kind of get wild and crazy sounds then, which is why I really like this, because it goes way beyond what a 303 can actually do. It sounds a bit cleaner, doesn't it, the TB-3? It does have like some distorted sounds, and it's got like built-in reverb and all kinds of other things too. People don't like the TB-3, and I actually do. So firstly, the sequencer, while not as good, I think, as the Volca Nubass, is still very easy to use, and you can get 32 steps out of it as well. Because no one else likes it, it is very cheap on the second-hand market, and it doesn't sound as close as the Zoxbox even sounds, but it's good enough. I'm just dicking around with it now, but it's got so many sounds in it, and you sequence it like a 303. No one wants it right now. It has a decent enough 303 sound. I think this is a good option for people, honestly, if you want to get an acid synth. This will take you places, honestly. I don't know why. Well, I understand that people don't like the way it looks, but you've got to see past that and see a good synth. Let's talk a bit about these things. These are like desktop 303 clone things. This is an Eowave Domino, which is no longer made in this form. You can buy it as a modular synth. This is a French synth and it's a bit weird. They wanted to make something that was between a TB-303 and like MS-20 or something like that. So it's fully transistor oscillators and filters. I wasn't intending to buy this, but years ago I heard some demos online and it just sounded so fat, and I couldn't understand why it sounded so fat. So I found one eventually. It has a MIDI in and audio out. I might try and sequence it from the Devilfish. Fat, this thing. There's a lot of texture on the high res sound that I don't hear on acid synths. We're really going for we're really analysing now. Not sure if I'd take it hands down for production, but on its own, head to head, it sounds like it's punishing the TD3 a bit. Yeah, it is. It is. You can still find them on eBay, and as I said, they still make them as a modular synth. They don't make this cool desktop thing anymore, which is a shame. We got to get into cork sniffing. So the next one is this MAM unit, the MAM MB-33. A very small and affordable analog desktop acid sound module. This used to be available when I first started being interested in music production in the end of the 90s. It was available as a rack, and then they re-released it in the last few years as this cool little desktop unit. You struggle to hear a difference. This is the MB-33. This is the MO. So it's a pretty good story, but then the disaster strikes when I go to square wave, right? This is the MO square wave. Okay, it's sounding acid. This is not, the square wave is not as good. The MB-33 square wave sounds like a real square wave, yes. An acid square wave is different from a real square wave. Here are the synths we've heard. Behringer Devilfish. We've had the MAM MB-33. We've had the Zoxbox. And we've had the Eowave Domino. We had the original 303, the Roland TB-3. The Nubass, the Moog Werkstatt. And we've had the Roland MC-202. The magic is definitely in the sequencing. So what do people think? Which was your favourite? Quite like the Roland TB-3, not sure if it's the aesthetics or the sound. Yeah. So that's John's favourite. Dirty 12 says price and bang for the buck. Go for the MO. And you're not wrong, all that this can do. Inspector Vector likes the Domino, or has picked it out as something to talk about. They say that in terms of a new find, standout new find is the Domino. Yeah, Tinker was surprised by the additional sounds of the TB-3. Zox and MO sounded top tier. Yeah, the Zox sounds so close to an original. Nubass and Moog sounded the most fun. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. The Moog was fun, wasn't it? This is brilliant, this thing. In terms of bang for the buck, though, you do have more options on the MO, but I like the small form factor, the fact it runs on batteries, I like the sequencers. The TD3 MO brings a lot to the table in terms of integrating with other gear, yes. For live, the MO has the accent button for build-ups. Yeah, that's a brilliant feature. That left, we've got the original 303 and the MC-202, which is really interesting that no one's picked these out. They are more expensive than the other ones because they're the vintage pieces. I don't think anyone here would say that any of the more modern, affordable options are worse than either of these. They sound good, they're classic, but you don't need these. But yeah, clearly I love my OG. The 202 and 101 is a great add-on for the 303. Yes, it is. It works perfectly with the 303 sequencer, and you can get some really good sequences out of it. We can't pick the TB303 since it's the baseline. Badum-tsh. Yeah, you would never say no to the OG. I really enjoyed talking acid with you guys. I will hope to see you next week. Enjoy the rest of this one though, and take care.